Hi, I'm Andy Call, lead pastor at Church of the Savior, joining you from the sanctuary at Church of the Savior today. I promise that not every one of these messages is going to be about some childhood memory, but I'm going to share another one with you today. When I was a kid, I grew up watching Sesame Street, and many of you watched it with as you were growing up, or watched it with your kids or with other people that lived in your household with you. And one particular sketch that I just really remember, and it's just kind of a silly little thing, but it was Grover, the sort of blue monster-y kind of guy. Grover teaching kids the difference between near and far. And it went something like this. Grover stood close to the camera and said, "This is near. This is far. This is near. This is far." Okay, that's probably enough to get the point. Even though Grover did it like 15 times and he was out of breath and he ended up collapsing at the end of it. The point is near and far. And what made me think about it is the time that we're in right now with the pandemic and the ways in which we are probably farther away from the people in our life than we have ever been. Even people very near in proximity. I think about my neighbors, people on either side of me. Now, sometimes I see my neighbors when I'm out walking the dogs and they're out with their kids or whatever. But I also feel like there's this huge separation. We can see people on a Zoom call and see all these faces, and yet we feel so very far away from them. The same thing is true when it comes to our faith. Right now, we may be feeling very far away from God. And it feels like there's this huge separation, and how do we get closer to God? And yet we also know that God is as near to us as our very hearts. That God embodies each one of us. There is an element of the divine that is with us, that is always with us no matter where we are. There was a 13th century mystic by the name of Marguerite Porete. And her name for God was reflective of her own experience. You see, as a mystic, she experienced God in ways, transcendent ways that were certainly considered taboo at the time. You didn't talk about things like this. But she sensed that God was so very present with her, right in her very being. And she said that other times it felt at the same time like God was like a faraway love that she saw from a distance, admired, and wanted to be close to. In fact, that experience shaped her so much that her name for God that she used in her writings and her own prayer life and her own reflection was far near. Those two words pasted together, far near. This God who was like someone who was so far away that we were constantly reaching, trying to attain, and yet so very near as to be within each one of us. Friends, as we're making our way through these days, it just seems like it's one hit after another, after another, after another. 2020 is like no other year we've ever experienced. If I hear the word unprecedented one more time, I think I'm going to lose my mind. I'd like to have some precedented times for a change instead of more unprecedented experiences. But all of those things can serve to make us feel more and more separated from one another, and more importantly, more and more separated from God. And yet it's also important for us to remember that God is not far away from us. God is never far away from us. God is as near as our breath. God is in there. God is with us. So as you're making your way through this week, I just want to encourage you to be mindful of this God who is both far and near at the same time. You don't have to be Grover to run back and forth and experience that nearness and that farness. But remember that even in those moments when God seems so very distant from us, we are never alone, because God is embodied within each and every one of us. Hold fast to that promise today and in the days ahead. Remember your prayer life and stay close to the one who is close to you. Friends, be healthy, be safe, be strong, and God bless you.